Good afternoon and welcome to Just Jocelyn. I'm your host, Jocelyn, and I'm really glad that you could join us here. It's been a couple of weeks, but life is crazy. Sometimes you just have to take some time off and sometimes you just have to regroup. So that's what I've been doing, but it's all for good because I have a gentleman here, Al Brandano. You have seen him before here on my shows, and we've talked about many, many different things, but we're putting on a different hat today. He's putting on a different hat today. And he's here to talk about Convention of States. And I think we've all heard about it, sort of one of those fleeting phrases. You're like, Convention of States, yes. And you know it's important, and you know it's something to do with government. But what really is it? What are we talking about? We know it's about the Constitution. We know that you can't change the Constitution unless a bill is put forward. And we, the voters, we, the citizens, 2/3 of us vote to pass it. The executive branch can't do it, the legislative branch can't do it, and the judicial branch, darn tootin', cannot do it. The three branches of government cannot change the Constitution, period. It's ours. We change it. We vote on it. We ask to have it amended. That's how it works. And if anybody tells you anything differently, they're lying. They're lying. And that's not in roar, that's in Lying. So, welcome to the show, Al.
Thank you, Jocelyn, as always.
Oh, it's so much fun to have you here. And we talk about so many things. I love it that we can jump from one subject to another.
Yes.
So, Convention of States, take us from the beginning. What is it? Why is it important? Why is it coming back again?
Let me tell you how it started for me.
Okay.
And it was kind of, I'm older, and my son came back from Afghanistan, thank God, safe and sound. A lot of people did not.
Correct.
And I had never served, and he really honored my family. My father did, my uncles before him, and so he really honored our family in doing that. And he was sitting out at the deck after he got back with my little granddaughter on his lap and a little fire pit. We were having a cold beer. And, we were talking. And I said, what was it like there? And he was explaining it to me. And he said to me, Dad, you got to do something. Everyone has to do something. He was just so upset at what he had experienced. And I said, I'm really ashamed of myself. I do all these other things. I really need to get involved. I've never really been involved. So I went in and got the house and got 2 beers. And on the way out, I have on my wall, we have this little colonial house. Mm-hmm. And we have the Constitution on the wall. It looks really cool. It looks great there, right?
Yeah.
But I've never, shame on me, I've never read it all the way through. Mm-hmm. And I'm in my 60s. So I said, oh my God, I'm ashamed of myself. So we enjoyed a cold beer together and slept that night, woke up in the morning, and I took the Constitution off the wall and actually read it. And it I got to this place called Article 5, and it said, well, the Founding Fathers knew that the federal government would run away. Mm-hmm. It would become a vortex, it would run away. They understood human beings, right? Mm-hmm. All throughout time, this is what we do. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And they said there'll be a place for the people through their state legislatures, mm-hmm. us through our state legislature, to propose amendments, keyword, propose only amendments to, big word, this Constitution. And the reason why I say that later on, this is very important.
Words matter.
They do, and especially then they did.
Mm-hmm.
So take you back to the Constitution, what's going on. Remember, 1776, we declare our independence in Boston, right?
Correct.
And we say because of the king and all the things that, the infractions. So there's a war for 10 years, basically, to get us to 1786, when the Constitution thereabouts is signed.
Correct.
In that time, the 39 founding fathers, or the people who signed the Constitution, every one of them's family's been under threat. They've seen their friends killed. People have moved to Canada, a third. It's been an absolute bloodbath for a lot of people. when they signed the Constitution, it's the only thing the 39 agreed on unanimously, and it was the last thing that they did in signing the Constitution. Colonel Mason stood up and said, wait a minute, we have a problem here. We gave the federal government all this power, and we have nothing from the states. And it's the only thing they unanimously agreed on. They gave us, we the people, that's why when you look at the Constitution, we the people is this much bigger than the rest of it.
It's huge.
They gave us the power to propose amendments to this Constitution, right? As long as we get first to call a convention of states. It's called the Convention of States, not a constitutional convention.
Correct.
Constitutional conventions happen through the House and the Senate, through the legislative branches on the U.S. side.
Okay.
The Convention of States is we the people say to our state legislature in New Hampshire and Connecticut and New York, we propose amendment to the Constitution, and if 3/4 of the states, in this case 34 states, come together and they say we would like to call for a convention of the states, the U.S. House and Senate must call, not if, it shall be called.
Shall.
The states come together, right? And 32 states, I said 34, I'm sorry, 32 states come together. When they come together and they call the convention, they call it for specific reasons. What we're going to propose amendments at that time. And say something gets past it, and I'll give you an example. In the project called the Convention of States .action, conventionofstates.action, you can look at it online.com. Okay. That's the group that I belong to. And that's the one I kind of dedicated myself to since I've learned of there's only one nonviolent way out of this. And we need to get involved. So I joined the Convention of States. And the Convention of States has 19 states that have passed a resolution. And in that resolution are 3 things. And we all agree on them.
Unanimously.
Unanimously, Republican or Democrat. Term limits.
Yeah.
Fiscal responsibility. And federalism. Bring back to the states, which is the states' rights.
Correct. The sovereignty of the states.
Right. And
Okay.
I was showing you earlier before, just you look at 65.7%, regardless of your Republican, Democrat, Independent, most people want this to happen.
Okay.
So powerful. But yet the people in the federal legislation side don't want to do it.
Yep.
It doesn't happen.
This we'll have this chart put up close for you guys in the video, so you'll be able to see that.
So the exciting part, when people say to us, what can we do? We're frustrated. Nobody's listening to us. There is something we can do, right? This is what the Founding Fathers gave us. All we need to do is follow the Constitution, right? Think about it. They gave us a roadmap. They went through, at this time, people were killing their family. People were being under attack. They would be hung if they were caught. They had so much courage that they gave us this tool inside the Constitution. And all we need to do is bring people together, the 34 states together, call for a convention, pass these 3 proposals, and send it off for the state.
For the federal government.
And perfect. So what happens when it gets to the federal government?
They shall.
They shall call a convention
Right.
to propose amendments. These 3 amendments are on there that we just talked about. Well, how many states does it take to stop it? 13. So only 13 states, if they don't agree with what was proposed, can stop it. The Founding Fathers made this really hard because they did it for a reason. They didn't want knuckleheads doing this.
Well, they didn't. This is a really big deal to amend the Constitution, and our government currently pretends like it can. It acts like it can. There's no separation of powers. We've got executive branches passing executive orders and telling us we have to follow it. And unfortunately we do because we don't know any better, but we're going to educate you. So it makes sense that the Founding Fathers, in their brilliance that has lasted the test of time, would have put something like this in place. But it's also the government whose covered it up. They don't want us to know this.
Not only did it
like
not,
other things.
Let's take it to the next step. So if this is true, what I've just told you, and I stake my
reputation
on it, and if it's the Constitution, my life on it. But let's say, for instance, why doesn't it happen? How could this be me finding this out in New Hampshire? One is civics, right? We don't study the Constitution anymore. We don't read it in schools.
Correct.
It's not required to do anything. If you go home in your home tonight, take out Article 5, take a look. The history behind it's amazing. Here's the other part that most people don't know. It has never happened yet.
We've never had a convention of states.
A convention of states. We've called constitutional conventions, but we've never called the convention of the states. That's why this needs to happen. Here's the fear. Why hasn't it happened? The arch right and the arch left. And I'll tell you why.
The fear porn.
The fear porn.
On both sides.
And George Washington speaks of this all the time, about fear to do anything. Why we're not doing anything with $32 trillion in debt. What does that mean? $32 trillion is, you take a dollar bill and to end, it's 4 round trips to the sun. Oof. Think about that for a minute.
4 round trips to
the sun. If you lay a dollar bill end to end. We are in huge trouble, right? We have the tools. The Founding Fathers gave us the tools, but yet here's what happens. When we start to get close, New Hampshire, by the way, I'm the state director in New Hampshire. We've been trying for 8 years to get this passed so that we can take it to the rest of the way. We're at 19 states. We're trying to make New Hampshire the 20th. We've been stopped for the last 8 years.
Wow.
And the real is the fear porn from the
extreme right.
Yep. They're going to lose their Second Amendment right.
But we're not talking about the Second Amendment
We're not even talking about amending it.
Right.
We're talking about proposing amendments. And think about it. Even if the 32 states came together and said that, 13 states could say we're not going to do it.
Correct.
So
why not take that first step?
The protections are there.
Yeah.
Right? The far left says, hey, you're going to take away some money from us and something's going to happen. So it's like from the John Birch Society to the right, and then George Soros's groups to the left. They fight us, and our own legislature can't seem to find its way.
But I think they're also just as ignorant in many cases to this. There are some people that know about it and would say, no, you can't let them do that. You can't let those debt slaves, because that's what we are, people, debt slaves. You can't let them get too big for their britches. Make sure you squash this.
So it almost happened once before, and it was the balance. Graham Rudman, during the time of Graham Rudman, I want to say 79 to 81, this made almost met the contingent to have it happen. And think about it. As soon as the people fight and make this happen or call it, what do you think the federal government will do? They don't want the people to have their power back. They're going to try to do something.
They're going to be 100 times
legislation.
Worse.
They're going to pass legislation to appease us. That's how Graham Rudman got passed.
Yep.
And so here we are again. It's up to us. It really is up to us. And it's up to us to stand up, to read the Constitution, use the tools that are in it. Here's the most frustrating part for me. People say, well, I have this, this part scares me. Article 5 scares me. I like the rest of the Constitution. I don't like this. And,
oh, well.
Oh, well. And here's my point. And pretty soon, it's Memorial Day. We'll go out and we'll put flags on these graves, these beautiful flags on these beautiful graves to honor people who took an oath and then paid the ultimate sacrifice. When they gave their life or took the oath, they said, I'm for everything except Article 5. Or I'm only for Article 2 and Article 16.
They never said that.
I'm for they took it to defend the Constitution.
Period.
As it is.
Yep.
When our elected officials want to pick and choose what we honor and what we don't.
They're not supposed to. Their oath of which, wait a minute, let's just throw a little caveat in there, that there is a story going around that multiple members of 46's administration, they cannot find the oath of office anywhere. No copies, no
that's
registering.
That's amazing to me. But think about it. These people gave their lives.
Yeah.
They swore an oath to the Constitution, defend it. Here we are with the Constitution. You know, a politician can't say, I like everything but Article 5.
You're not allowed to. You work for us.
I'm afraid to let people have that power. And
The bottom line is, you represent us. We put you in that position. You guys are really teetering on the edge right now. And you don't want term limits because we know what you've done and we're going to put the power back with the people. So they're going to fight tooth and nail to not let us do this.
they don't have a choice if we stick together.
If we stick together and we do, I was just going to say that.
And think about it. Why term limits? Why is that so important? If you look at the history of the House and Senate, if you were a lobbyist, who would you put your money on? Lobbyists put their money on incumbents.
Mm-hmm.
Why do they put their money on incumbents? Because incumbents win about 87% of the time. That's not my numbers. That's federal numbers.
Yep.
Those are actual numbers. Mm-hmm. So that's why incumbents, and when it's jury rigged and the scales are moved in different directions and they have the money, and here in New Hampshire alone, we had Maggie Hassan had 5 million?
I was going to say 5.
No, 50 million.
50 million, yes.
And Don Bolduc had 5 million. I mean, when you look at those odds, and regardless of the Republican or Democrat, it could be the other way around. When you have those odds, how can you, and it's all not money from New Hampshire.
Correct. It's money from outside the state. It's from lobbyists.
And
it's from people who have an agenda, and again, ignoring what we the people want.
So they bypass us by giving them all that money to run campaigns against the people. In the meantime, we have the tools right here to do it.
So how does someone get involved in this?
You go to the Convention of States action or conventionofstates.com on your website. If you put in you want to sign a petition, we need petition signers. Right now, there's almost 15,000 in New Hampshire alone.
Petitions?
Petition signers.
Oh, signers. Okay.
Yeah, and that's phenomenal.
Nice.
So, and then there's a little box that says, "Hey, I'd like to do something," and they will give you my contact information. You'll get in touch with me, and we have a great group of people. This year, we got past the House. We almost got past the House. We're short 19 votes. Huge, great team of people put that together and made that happen. So we don't need 19 people. We need 1,900 people, 19,000 people in New Hampshire to join this and to take what the founding fathers gave us, because nothing else is working right now, because the system is broken, and not through any fault of ours, except that they're not teaching civics. They're not teaching us the oaths and what it means, and there is no branch of government to hold our officials in any of the branches accountable, truly accountable, not just use the word and throw it out and think that's it, to follow their oath of office, and they're allowing them to abuse us and take away our rights from the Constitution by passing all these bogus laws and statutes and garbage. So we go back to our famous, I like to say, Obi-Wan Kenobi himself, Dan Richard, here in New Hampshire. If you don't know your rights, you don't have any. Right?
It's absolutely true.
And that's where we're at. So we're in an amazing place. We can stand up and take this back ourselves. We can propose amendments. Non-violent. It's the only non-violent way to do this. And our founding fathers had come through that. And through that, they gave us this tool in the Constitution, and we must use it to fix this.
Yep. Well, right now, as Daniel talks about, we have no redress of grievance, period. What does that mean? We cannot go to our school boards. We've been labeled terrorists. We can't say, stop spending my tax money on porno and garbage and stuff we didn't approve. We can't go to our state legislature, the 400 and something of them, because they don't even know what their oath of office is. They barely know what the New Hampshire Constitution is. They're all in it, taking the federal money. So we can't even go to them. There's a few we can, but there's not enough of them to stand arm in arm with us. We can't go to our executive branch, our governor and the executive council. We saw that fiasco last Wednesday. And our federal government is just as bad. So it seems to me, this is the perfect time to go forward with this. And like you said, 32 states come together. We put this out. This is what we want. X amount of states, 13 states say no. Okay, so we're dead in the water. But we need to get this to the federal government, and we need to, I want to say something that's not violent. We need to hit the tennis ball over into their court. We need to put the ball in their court so that they now have to meet us and do what their oath demands.
The founding fathers gave us leverage, and we're not using it.
Okay.
And it's locked away, and it's hidden, and we should be ashamed of ourselves. As I was when my son came back and I looked at that beautiful Constitution on the wall that I never read. Right? Looked great.
Or if you did, I mean, I've read it, and I have military in my family and police in my family, 911 in my family, so we all know what it is. But we really didn't. You know it. Oh, it's the Constitution, and I know it the first and the second and this and this. But we never applied it to everyday life and what's going on right now. And when that clicks.
So think about it. You're sitting on your people go home. They work 2 jobs. They put their kids through college. They do all this stuff. You know, they go home, they're tired. I understand it. You can be a 20-minute patriot. We'll take 5 minutes. If you can give us, the Convention of States, 5 minutes a week, we call it the 20-minute patriot. That's all we're asking for. Go to the conventionofstates.com, sign up. If you can give us 5 minutes a week, we can change this country.
Well, we need to change this country. And regardless what party you're in, we need to go back to we are Americans. Parties are a government thing. They made that up. That we didn't make that up. They made that up. And we've gone along with it. We need to go back and we need to push back. And it's not even the independent party. We need to be the American party.
George Washington called it. And remember, this is not a Republican thing. It's not a Democrat thing. It's not an independent thing. Nope. It's an American thing.
And that's where we have to come together.
And that's where we have to come together. It's not a party orientation. We can't think like that. I don't know how a balanced budget needs to protect our family in the future. Our children and grandchildren are in, like I said, 4 round trips to the sun. Think about that. That's crazy what we're doing to them.
Well, if I think back, which was a while when I was in school, and I heard back as young as 11 and 12, you have to do it for the children. We must do it for the children, our grandchildren. We can't tax our grandchildren. You have been for the last 50, 60 years. There's other people older than me that heard it for that amount of time. So when is it time to stop making the debt neck chain on everybody bigger and heavier? Because it's never happened in my lifetime. So when is it going to be the right time?
And the term limits thing. I mean, think about it. Lobbyists, and people will say, that's another thing that destroys us. We have a government that, how many people are 80 plus? I'm not saying people 80 plus don't have cognitive abilities and the rest of it, but we need to build a bigger bench.
Go get a real job.
We need to build a bigger bench and let people move out of the government and let new people come in. Young people are unfairly, they're not even represented now.
Correct.
Which is just, it troubles me so much. And this is one thing that we've had more and more young people joining us because they're seeing they have no hope and that this is their way to change things.
And they can see that the plan was always here, but it's been buried by the government and the legislators and the schools because they didn't want us to know. So it's time to educate ourselves. It's time to find out about this. People, it sounds terrible. I can't this. You don't know. You didn't sign up. You didn't go to a meeting. You didn't find out. Look at where we are because you didn't fight City Hall.
And here's the one that is the funniest of all. Let's make up 1,000 excuses not to do this. And look at where we are. Continue to wait, right? And what are you going to tell your family and grandchildren after this?
Yep.
You did nothing because you're afraid to try. Washington talks, look a lot about what Washington talks about in fear and the patriots and people. We can't be, the fear mongers can't control us. They got us in $32 trillion in debt. The fear mongers have got us there.
Exactly. And the other thing is don't look to a few of us to do it for you, because that's how they do pick us off. They do arrest you. They do all these things. But if we all collectively stand up as Americans, taxpayers, voters, mothers, fathers, grandparents, aunts, uncles, for us now and the children in the future, because I'm not going to say for the future anymore. We have to fix it now, because if we don't do it now, there is no future, and there's no point in saying for the kids.
And for me, it's 5 minutes. If you can give me 5 minutes a week, 20 minutes a month, we can change everything.
Change New Hampshire and change the United States.
ConventionStates.com.action. Reach out to us.
I love it. All right. So thank you, my friend, once
Thank you.
again. And everybody, I'll have them take a screenshot of this and put it up so you can put it on pause and you can write down the information and reach out to Al. Ask the questions. You're not going to have to drive 100 miles anywhere. You're going to start with what works 5 minutes a week. That's 20 minutes a month. Are you an American or are you not an American? Are you going to stand with all of us? To heck with the government. It's two wings of the same bird. They created it. It's their monster. We're going to take it back, and we're going to become the way the Constitution was intended by our founding fathers. Thank you so much, Al.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Can't wait to see you again.
As always.
All right. See you next week, everybody. I've got a new show starting up, alternative healing, and everything you need to know and make a choice about. Have a great rest of your week.